And good morning, and welcome to our Texas Interns Unite virtual conference. My name is Aaron Demerson, and I'm the commissioner representing employers at the Texas Workforce Commission. So whether you are a current intern, a student looking to become an intern, or even a Texas employer looking for interns, we want to welcome you. This event today is in partnership with our great friends at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. Dr. Keller, Dr. Jackson, thank you very much for your continued support in this continued partnership. This virtual conference is the second activity associated with our Texas Interns Unite event series. There will be a total of 4 throughout the year, and our first was just this last Monday as we launched Texas Interns Unite during a press conference at the Google facility. And we also unveiled our Texas Interns Unite LinkedIn page as well. Don't forget to check that page out. The next event after today will be our National Internship Day with the Texas Twist Conference on July 28th. And more information will be coming your way in the next couple of weeks. And finally, the big event will be the Texas Business Summit with an emphasis on Texas Interns Unite happening on September the 30th at the AT&T Stadium. Yes, at the home of America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. And these events are just the beginning. However, today, you're all in for a great treat. I'll introduce a couple of guests for remarks, and then you'll hear from our dynamic keynote speaker, Emily Mithner, who's the founder and CEO of FindSpark, also a professor, speaker, and Gen Z and millennial expert. So sit back, take notes, and engage. Let me give a quick shout out to Josh and Alejandro and the Watch Party team. And so on behalf of Commissioner Julian Alvarez, our chairman, Brian Daniels, let's get ready to roll with this conference. And so next, I'd like to bring up our chairman, Brian Daniels. He's the chairman and commissioner representing the public here at the Texas Workforce Commission. He'll share a few words with you.
Well, thank you so much, Commissioner Demerson. What a great opportunity we have here today to be with all of y'all all around the state, talk about something that's so critically important to what we're doing here in Texas with all the job creation that employers are doing. Internships are absolutely critical for anyone who's in college, at the university, or even studying things at their junior college or on their own at night. These internships really help do 2 important things. The first one is, when you actually do something, that's when you really learn about it. People learn a lot of different ways. You can learn by listening to something, you can learn by watching something, you can learn by reading something. But until you actually experience that thing, you're not really going to learn everything you can about it. In fact, research will tell us that we retain about 10% of the things we read, but we retain 10 times that when we have an opportunity to experience something. So all the things you've been learning in all your classes are even on YouTube. This is an opportunity for you to take an internship that really helps you put that into practice and learn those skills that you're going to need in the workforce. Now, the second thing that it does is it gives you an opportunity, if you are an intern, to meet people who work in your field, an opportunity for you to make contacts and create that network that's going to give you a leg up when you're trying to find that permanent job. So there's so many advantages to you as interns, and frankly, employers, if you're watching, we have got to get these interns. We've got to increase this, and we've got to get some opportunities, because this is a wonderful opportunity for your company and for the jobs that you're creating to get new knowledge, new talent, new skills, just new ideas, and really put that into practice in the office. We have an intern in our office this summer. It's a wonderful paid internship opportunity. And frankly, the information that she brings us are things we can't get on our own. So we provide her some knowledge, skills, and abilities, and she provides the same thing back to us. This particular Interns Unite initiative that Commissioner Demerson is championing is going to be transformative for this state through the rest of this year and for many years to come. I'm delighted to have this opportunity to be a part of it, delighted that Commissioner Demerson has championed this effort and continues to provide critical leadership to this very, very important Interns Unite for the state of Texas. Thanks so much. I hope you have a great meeting here and a great day.
Chairman, thank you so much again for your support of all of our efforts. We appreciate that support. Thank you for everything that you do here in the state as it relates to workforce and education and economic development. We appreciate the firm support there. And so It's also my pleasure. We're partnering with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and we have Dr. Tina Jackson here with us on behalf of the coordinating board, who has some interesting programs at the state level that some you might not be aware of, but for Texas employers, look out for what they're doing under the Texas Works program. And so with that, I'm going to bring to the stage Dr. Tina Jackson.
Hello, students. So glad to see all of you all. Thank you so much for all of the great things that you will be doing. It's great to be here with you and with partners for student success. Google is vibrant, and we're excited about the work that we've connected with. On behalf of the Texas Higher Education Board, we are pleased to stand with you in Texas Workforce Commission and others to kick off the Texas Interns Unite initiative to connect interns with opportunities across the Lone Star State. The Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board is committed to helping Texas of all ages by earning a post-secondary credential and creating a pathway to learn and grow. I work on a statewide effort to support all students for success and to expand career opportunities. It's exciting. It's an exciting time to be here to talk to you all. It's exciting for you to be an intern in the state of Texas. The state has a tremendous employers pool who are just excited about the opportunities for you to grow and learn. The coordinating board and we administer the Texas Works program, which delivers high quality internships to Texas students, demonstrating a financial need. The program enables Texas students to gain professional experiences and forge lasting professional connections. Students who participate in the Texas Work program have gone on to receive full-time employment with the companies that they intern with. For employers participating in the Texas Work internship program, the coordinating board matches the wages that students offer up to $10 an hour. We're so glad to have so many employers from across the state. Students have competitive wages, and we're excited students that you guys get these wages. We would just love to hear more about how you all are doing. As you move forward with your internships, we know that you are going to make great relationships with students and with other interns. If you're interested, employers, in the work that we're doing, we have program staff that can assist you and answer any questions that you may have. And we invite you to learn more about the work that we're doing by visiting our website at higheredtexas.gov/TexasWorks. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited about your journey this summer.
And thank you, Dr. Jackson. We really appreciate the support that we have with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board in the efforts there. So make sure to share with our good friend, Dr. Keller. We appreciate his firm support of our internship program. So Texas Interns Unite, we're excited about what we're doing here. Today, we're going to also have our keynote speaker. So we're at this point where Joyce Johnson is going to introduce Emily Mithner. From that standpoint, Joyce actually is an author. She's a speaker. She's tied in with Generation Z and X and all of those individuals, and actually has practiced with some interns over the years, and even as far as last night, where they kind of felt back or gave her input on what's necessary and what's needed out there from that point. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask Joyce to join us on stage to introduce our keynote speaker, Emily. Joyce Johnson started her sales career in the professional sports industry and later entered the telecommunications industry, leading the role as sales director in the global markets and worked to deregulate both telecommunications and energy markets. Joyce spent the past year growing the Y Sales Network brand after a 20-year career as a sales professional, earning top recognition as the #1 seller in 2017 and 2018. Y Sales Network is a global sales training organization dedicated to empowering the next generation business leaders. For over 15 years, Joyce has had the opportunity to mentor a group of her favorite people, college students, as she listened to their experiences and witnessed them take leaps of faith on their path to join the workforce. Johnson was inspired to create a platform to assist them in their journey by creating the Y Sales Network Student Foundation. And so let me bring Joyce Johnson to the stage.
Thank you. Good morning, Texas. I wanted to say that. Robin says, good morning, America. I want to say good morning, Texas. I am Joyce Johnson, and I am so excited to be here today to help kick off the Texas Unite Internship Conference. I am here this morning to celebrate you college students. How many college students do we have out there? Anyone know? About 300 or so, 200? I want to give you an applause today. I want to celebrate you. This is how we're going to celebrate during the day. The reason I want to celebrate you is one, you have made a commitment towards your success, and that's worth celebrating. Two, you registered for this program so that you took action to move forward towards accomplishing your goals. And three, let's face it, you got up this morning, it's early on a Friday in the summer, you rolled over, put a t-shirt on, a clean one we hope, brushed your hair and got onto this call. Now I'm not judging, okay? Because before Miss Williette called me to be here in person, I was gonna pop on a blazer over my gown. I was gonna comb through my hair with my fingers, and then I was gonna put my red lipstick on and say, hey y'all, and get started. So I am here to celebrate you today. On a serious note, every Friday morning, I host a room in Clubhouse, which is an audio app. And on Friday mornings, our topic is celebrating our wins. I want to say to you today that I want you to begin to learn to celebrate your wins on a daily basis. We are so focused on getting to our end, to the destination. We're so focused on getting an internship, getting a job, graduating, the car, the home, all of those things, that sometimes we miss the really wonderful things that happen in between. So today I encourage you to begin to celebrate yourself and your wins every day. I don't want you to get lost in the process. Trust me when I say that there is joy in the journey. So celebrate yourself one more time before we get started. With that said, I am here to introduce our keynote speaker for today. Now, this lady knows a little bit something about internships. She had four internships when she was in college. She showed up, she was enthusiastic. I'm sure she raised her hand often and early. She took in all the information that she could, and it fueled her passion to become an entrepreneur. So she started a company, Find Spark. That is a community where employers go to find professionals, young professionals like you, to work within their organization. She's since received many accolades, many awards. She's been invited to speak on many college campuses. She spoke to the United Nations, and here in Austin, one of our favorites, South by Southwest. So here today to help you and to teach you to build a powerful presence, I want you guys to give a really big virtual Texas applaud to entrepreneur, speaker, professor, Miss Emily Methner.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Joyce. Thank you. I appreciate the cowboy hat emoji. Very relevant. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And actually, team on the tech side, I just need to be made a host so I can share my slides. And while the tech team helps me just get set up to share my slides, I would love, oh, it looks like I'm the host now. Here we go. Great. I would love for everyone to introduce themselves in the chat, because this is not only a great opportunity to learn from this talk that I'm about to give, but it's also a great opportunity to connect with fellow interns. So you can take a minute to introduce yourself in the chat, share where you went to school, where you go to school, where you're interning, if you're interning currently, and also maybe you have a LinkedIn or a social media page that you use professionally, so you can, again, connect with each other throughout this presentation as well. So love to see those intros come through in the chat. So thank you so much for the kind introduction, Joyce, and everybody on the team has put this together. It's so impressive what you've built up from scratch, and I'm extremely honored to be a part of it. So again, a little bit about me. My name is Emily Mithner, And a huge reason why I became an entrepreneur and started my first company, Find Spark, is because I really wanted to help push the importance of networking and building relationships early on in your career. And understanding that, there aren't always a lot of great resources or ways to learn how to do that, and wanting to create environments and programs that would make it actually fun and enjoyable to network, learn how to network and connect with other people. So I have produced hundreds of events, panels, conferences, all about networking, building a relationship, being an amazing intern, and just building your career in general. I'm also an adjunct professor. I've been teaching career and social media courses at multiple colleges, from freshmen ranging up to senior learners. And I'm really, really passionate about empowering people to take ownership of their careers and their relationships so that they can just build a career journey that they love. I also have my certificate in diversity and inclusion from Cornell, and I'm currently in the e-commerce world, in addition to starting that first company, Find Spark. And these are just a few of the companies that I have worked with over the past 10 plus years. We have worked with so many different types of companies and folks at all levels from diverse backgrounds. And over and over and over again, they emphasize in the programming and relationships we built how important it is for interns early on to put themselves out there, to build relationships, and to start doing that as soon as possible. Networking is so important. It's one of the most valuable things you can do throughout your career. So starting as a student and an intern is really important. So I'm really excited to share with you a lot of really actionable tips today that will help you, like we say, build a powerful presence. And we're going to talk about how to do that both online and offline, because it's really important to do both. So just before we dive in, as Joyce mentioned, kudos to you all for being here on a Friday morning during the summer. And so really fully invest yourself in the next 45 minutes or so. So I highly recommend, turn off and silence your other devices, close out of other windows, make the screen full size, this event, fully focused, and also grab a pen and paper for notes. I will provide the slides afterwards, so don't feel like you have to jot down things that my slides say, but I really want you to take this time to reflect on your own journey and take notes of how you, what stands out to you the most in terms of how you can start networking and building your presence in an authentic way. And thank you to everyone who is doing it already. But again, if you haven't, we would love to hear from you in the chat with your own little introduction. So sharing your name, where you go to school, where you intern. And if you have a LinkedIn profile, you can share that. Or maybe you have another social media profile you like to use professionally as well, because you can all connect with each other now, follow each other. I encourage you from this event to not just connect with me, which I will share my LinkedIn profile, but connect with other people in the chat. And yeah, include also what you might be looking for in an internship if you don't currently have it, because you never know who might be in the room. So I really encourage you again to chat with each other, engage in the chat throughout this event. And also there's a Q&A box. So any questions that you have for me, we're going to save time for Q&A at the end. And always folks have really good questions, so don't be shy, but make sure you put those in the Q&A box so they don't get lost in the chat. And now I would love to get 2 to 3 volunteers. This is a little less pressure because I'm just asking you to chat this virtually. Normally at an in-person event, I would ask you to raise your hand and stand up and speak. But I would love to get 2 to 3 students in the chat to share their own goal of what would be a dream role or dream employer that you would like to have after graduation. So I would love to have, again, just 2 to 3, if there's more, wonderful, but 2 to 3 folks share what would a specific role or specific employer be for you? What is that dream pie in the sky role or employer that you would love to work for after graduation, or maybe for your next internship? I would love to get a couple of folks to share that. Let's see. Who are my brave folks in the chat? I know you've been sharing introductions, but what's a dream role, dream internship, dream employer once you graduate? Okay, so we have Rohan sharing that they would like to be working in a biomedical engineer role after graduating. Thanks for sharing. Yasmin, a little more specific, dream role is an HR manager at Google. So thank you. Continue sharing, folks, if you want. Why do I like to do this little experiment? We're in a room of over 100 people, almost 200 people, and even more watching virtually. I know there's watch parties. And I got two brave people to be the first to share. And specifically, Yasmin, right? I'm scrolling back up. Yasmin mentioned specifically that her dream role is an HR manager at Google. Well, Yasmin, one of my best friends, her husband is extremely high up at Google. He's actually the head of Google Docs, basically, or Google Sheets specifically, maybe, but he's very high up and he's been there for over 15 years. So Yasmin, if you email me after this event, I would love to make a personal intro to you. His name is Michael, to make that intro. So maybe you can get an informational interview with somebody on the HR team who would be helpful. So that's pretty cool, right? I was just able to, of the two people, make an introduction. So what is the lesson there? The lesson there is that when you don't put yourself out there, when you're not able to articulate what a future goal might be, you're going to miss out on opportunities, right? Out of the hundreds of people in this room right now, there's probably other folks where I could have maybe made connections, but Yasmin was that brave soul who specifically said what she was looking for. And it's also a lesson in being specific, right? Because the more specific you are about what you want, about what your goals are, the easier it is for people to help you. And I promise you that folks are always so excited to help, but they don't always know how. So when you're more specific, it's easier, right? So I hope that was a quick little lesson in there about how putting yourself out there can really create opportunities, right? And as you're a student and as you're in internships, you really want to do this constantly, right? So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about how you can stand out in work environments, like when you have your internships, and how you can build relationships with people both online and offline, and also how you can build confidence. Because I'm just curious if any folks in the audience are willing to get a little bit vulnerable and maybe admit that you find networking a little awkward, or networking a little overwhelming, or maybe the idea of networking and talking to strangers gives you a bit of anxiety. Can anyone relate to that? Right, intimidating is another good word, right? Especially as someone just starting out. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, right? So we're going to talk today about how you can build your confidence and learn how to network authentically in a way that feels good for you, right? And in other words, we're really talking about how you can build and maintain your network starting now. And first, I want everyone to just take a minute and think about yourself and recognize that you are more than just a resume. Resumes are very, very important, but you're not just a piece of paper and what's listed there. And by building connections and building an online presence and showing off who you are in person as well throughout your work experience, that's going to help people really get to know you, to get to know things like your values. You know, what do you care about in a work environment, and what sort of things are really important to you in your career? And also, everyone has a unique background and unique experiences that are going to make you great candidates for certain roles. No one's ever going to fit every single piece of a job description, right? But you have to embrace the fact that your unique experiences and backgrounds, whether that's personal or professional experiences, will help to make you a great employee. And so by sharing those with people through building relationships, that's going to help you stand out. So I would love if everyone right now, just personally on a piece of paper or on your phone, if you need to write something that is unique about your work or personal experience that is a great attribute to you as an employee that maybe is not something that is written on your resume, right? So take a minute to just think about that. What is something unique about your experience, or maybe a value, if that's easier to come to you, a value that you have and that you're going to look for within your career and any job that you might take. Take a second to write that down. All right, so as you do that, two big things we're talking about today and how this all fits together is networking and building relationships at events and also through informational interviews. And again, both online and offline. I know a lot of people are very sick of virtual events at this point, but obviously they're going to continue to be a big part of the hiring process and the work experience. So it's definitely important that we still continue to feel comfortable in virtual environments, but at the same time, get back into meeting up in person, because that's also different and has a different set of skills and things we need to think about. So why are events like this, or events at your job or your school, why are they important, and why are informational interviews important? Well, one huge thing is it allows you to connect with future employers and mentors in a low pressure environment, right? Does anyone here think that job interviews create a lot of pressure? Anyone agree with that, right? When you're going in for a job interview, there's a lot of pressure, especially if you actually care, right? So you don't want your only experience networking and public speaking and presenting yourself to be in such high pressure situations. So events and informational interviews, they're not about directly getting a job, so you don't have so much pressure, right? And you want to build your network regardless and outside of work as well. So maybe, some of you have internships, some of you here don't, and it's okay if you do or you don't. There's always events going on. Again, this is a great example, and you definitely want to stay tuned with all the other great Texas Interns Unite events that are happening in person and virtually. Like, you can take advantage of events regardless of where you're working at the time. And going to events and doing informational interviews are really incredible ways to learn about industries firsthand, to learn about roles firsthand, to get personal experiences from people that you're not going to find online. And just to clarify, I'm curious if anybody in the room has ever been on an informational interview before, because I want to make sure I clarify what that is. Yeah, so give a yes or a no. If you've never been on an informational interview, you can say no. If you have, you can say yes. Looks like we got a bit of a mix here. So an informational interview is pretty much what it sounds like. It's when you meet up with somebody who you're interested in learning about their career, about their professional experience, but it's not to get a job, it's just to get information. And we'll talk more about how to find these people and how to go about doing it in the right way. But an informational interview and going on them is very common practice, and people do it at all levels of their career. It's not exactly like being at a career fair, but it's similar. But when you do an informational interview, it's also one-on-one for the most part, right? So you're inviting someone out to join you to take the time to share more about their career. All right, so how do you build your confidence through these events and interviews, whether it's informational or actual interviews? So the one thing is your elevator pitch, right? Really important to practice and not, I use the word perfect, but it'll never be perfect, but to practice your elevator pitch. And what you want to include in that is you want to be able to quickly articulate a little bit about what you've done in the past, what you're doing currently. And the big piece that a lot of people leave out is, what do you want to do in the future, right? What is one of your future goals or next steps? So what might this include? Again, so you want to include a little bit about your past, a little bit about your present, and what your future goal is going to be. So you would include relevant experience and maybe transferable skills. And transferable skills means it's not so direct to a particular job, but it's still a skill that would be valuable. You, of course, in your pitch want to include any relevant accomplishments or results that you had at a particular job, especially ones that might be pretty unique. And then again, what is your future goal? So for instance, Yasmin's future goal is that she wants to be in HR at Google, and she could include that in every pitch, because why not? There could be someone in the room, just like this instance, who knows someone at Google or knows someone in HR or in HR at a very large tech company like Google, right? And if you can, sprinkle in something, in one of those categories that makes you different, right? Because I don't want to be all rosy in the sense that, the job market can be very competitive. Say you want to work at a giant place like Google that's so popular, a lot of people want to work there. So, whenever you're thinking about your pitch, you do want to think about, as a student, as an intern, what are experiences or accomplishments or things about you that, every other kid in your class doesn't also have under their belt, right? So taking the time to think about something unique. So I would love in the chat for everyone to think about something unique about themselves that you could throw or integrate into your elevator pitch, and put that in the chat if you're brave. You can also, again, write it down, but I'd love to see some folks share throughout the event in the chat things that they're writing down, share with a group to inspire people. And look at this. So like Rashad just put something in the chat that is a really great example of an elevator pitch right there. And you might give your elevator pitch just like Rashad did in a virtual event in the chat, but it's also important to practice out loud as well, right? So when we talk about practicing out loud and giving your elevator pitch, which the phrase elevator pitch comes from the reason it's called that is because it's if you were stuck in an elevator, not stuck, but if you had the chance to, you got in an elevator and it turned out that someone from Google was in that elevator with you and you only have 30 seconds to tell them about yourself, what would you tell them? What would be in that elevator pitch, that quick 20, 30-second pitch? So one thing that is really important for being a good communicator, whether it's one-on-one or during an interview, is you want to work to avoid filler words. Everyone has them. I'm a professional speaker and an adjunct professor. I teach every week. I'm constantly speaking and I still use filler words. So here's an easy thing to put in the chat. What are your filler words of choice? If you take a second to think about it, are you an like, so yeah, so maybe it's more of a sound versus a word. Maybe it's a phrase that you like to use. So yeah, I find that a lot of students are unsure about how to end their thoughts during interviews. So they end by trailing off and saying, so yeah, right? A lot of people say sorry a lot when they're talking, and that's sort of a filler phrase. So, the reason I bring up filler words, there's a lot of different things you can do to become a speaker, but I find that most people at all ages are using filler words. And so it's a great idea to put some effort into eliminating filler words from your vocabulary. And that means that you have to think about not using filler words in everyday situations with friends and family, so that you don't end up using them in, again, higher pressure situations like networking events or interviews. So I would love everyone to just take a minute and write down, what are some filler words of choice, and spend some time thinking about how you can stop using them, or really just thinking about it, being aware of it. And I like to recommend telling people that you spend the most time with, so friends, partners, family members, tell them that you're actively working on getting rid of your filler words and give them permission to call you out on it when you use them. But really, one of the biggest things you can do to not use filler words as much is to just slow down. Slowing down when you're talking to people, when you're in an interview, on camera, in person, that's one of the best ways to stop using filler words. And a lot of people are afraid of pausing. But pausing, like I'm doing now, can actually come across, and does come across, very powerful and actually shows confidence that you're okay with some silence and you're okay with taking some time to think about your answers. So don't be afraid to slow it down, speak a little slowly, especially for instance, if English is your second language. Again, it's okay to go slow. It's just going to show that you're being thoughtful. Now, another place where you're giving people your elevator pitch, whether you realize it or not, are your social media bios. So I've seen a lot of different industries represented in where you want jobs and in your introductions. So every industry is a little bit different in terms of what is more normal that people might use professionally. But number one platform for people to use professionally to network, anyone guess? I'm sure you guys have a sense of which one that is. Regardless of the industry, LinkedIn, correct. Everyone should have a LinkedIn profile and everyone should make sure that at least say once a semester, you're updating that LinkedIn profile, right? Regardless of the industry, it's a great place to be. Now, I will say that people in every other industry are on Twitter, they're on Instagram, using other platforms for professional networking and building their online presence, but some are going to be more or less common than others, right? So if you're in a very conservative industry, you probably don't need or want to use Instagram to network professionally. But if any of your bios are public, and not private, you should assume that, an employer could see it. And so you want to make sure that it is not embarrassing, at least, right? But if you're in a more, say, creative industry, again, there's lots of examples of people in every industry using all social media platforms to network. But so think about what are you telling people within that bio, using that bio space, there's different character counts depending on the platform to tell people about you. What's something you're doing, what's something you've done in the past, what's a future goal, where are you going to school? And then also including something fun. Again, this is where you get to show people that you're more than just a resume, that you're a person with interests and values, outside of direct career related things. So these are just some examples here. And you can also use the features of these social media platforms in interesting ways. So for instance, on the left here is one of my students, a former student from School of Visual Arts. She is a VFX compositor. So she uses story highlights to talk about fun things like her dog, but also she has a story highlight that shows behind the scenes at her work, and also a story highlight that shows behind the scenes of her thesis project, which is a big deal. Basically, everybody at School of Visual Arts makes a film at the end of their college career. So she has a story highlight about that as well. And then Twitter is a good example as well. You can have a pinned tweet at the top of your Twitter account. So for instance, here's someone who's using that pinned tweet spot to show and talk about an award that he won. So, it's a great idea to use these features creatively. But again, going back to LinkedIn, because that is the one that is most important and everyone should have. And one of the most underutilized aspects of LinkedIn is the headline. So the headline is what shows up right underneath your name, which is right underneath your picture. And a big misconception is most people think that this headline is only and should only be your current title. So for instance, that you're a student or where you currently intern. But this headline is a spot that you want to utilize to show people more than what they're just going to find when they scroll down, i.e. where you go to school and what your current internship is. You have a lot of character space in your LinkedIn headline. So how can you be creative with that? And this headline shows up in a lot of important spots. It shows up when you add people, when you go to connect with them, the person will see your headline, and it also shows up in search. So take advantage of that. And yes, Rebecca in the chat brings up a great point. A super new feature of Instagram is that you can also pin 3 Instagram posts to the top of your feed. Thanks for sharing that. So here are some examples of how you can just show a little bit more to future employers and mentors and your peers about what you're looking for. So for instance, this person talks about being a recent graduate, what their degree is, and that is a great, and where they went to school. So that is a great way to sort of, again, take advantage of or show off where you are in school, whether you're a student or a recent grad. And here are a couple of other examples of people who are not just talking about one thing, but they at least include two things. So they include, for instance, this person, Miguel, on the side includes two different roles that they have. So when you're an intern or when you're a student, there's a good chance maybe you'll have a part-time campus job in addition to an internship. Maybe you'll have two internships. He also uses a great feature on LinkedIn that they launched during COVID, which is this open to work frame. So anytime you see someone with an open to work frame, you can click that to be able to add it to your profile. And it's such a great idea. If you are open to work, if you're looking for an internship or a job after school, make it as easy as possible for people to know that. And using this open to work frame is a great function and feature and a great thing to use. And here's another example of someone below, Ashley. She talks about where she's her current intern role, not just saying intern, but what type of intern, her actual title, technology intern at Walt Disney Animation, so also including the company. And then she also includes where she's currently going to school, right? So these are just a few examples, and you can also include here what type of internship you want. So maybe you don't currently have an internship, but for instance, if you're Yasmin, I'm going to keep picking on her because now I know her goals. Maybe Yasmin includes in her LinkedIn profile that she's currently seeking HR internships, right? Or seeking an HR internship after graduation. Or maybe she just wants to be really specific and say that she, after graduation, is looking for an HR role at Google. Because then, hey, if someone at Google sees that, that's fantastic. All right, so getting back to the virtual world of networking, I talked about filler words and getting rid of those is something that you can do, but also, when you are on camera at a virtual event, you do still want to set yourself up for physical success, right? So people care about your appearance. That's just the way it is. And that's going to impact what they think of you. So little things like sitting up straight, putting yourself in a bit in the frame, filling up most of the frame, looking into the camera, and then just making sure you're on mute when you're not talking. You want to make sure you're coming across well during virtual events. And then when it comes to in-person events, some of my big tips here, similarly, standing up straight or sitting up straight. Also, wearing a power outfit. And you know what? This really goes for virtual as well. When you're networking, you want to feel good, right? You want to feel and know that you look good. So think about, what is that one top, that blazer or that necklace or that pair of shoes that you feel amazing in. That's going to make a difference. And that doesn't mean you have to go out and buy a fancy, expensive wardrobe, but it is a good idea to invest in a few really well-fitting professional pieces that, again, are going to make you feel great when you're at these events. Also think about your energy level, making sure you get enough sleep, making sure you don't have too much coffee, but you have enough coffee. And then two huge tips are make sure that you are focused. It is so obvious at a networking event or even at a virtual event when you're on camera, when people are not paying attention. And that can really rub people the wrong way and create a bad impression. I highly recommend at networking events, you put this off your body, not in your pocket, not in your blazer, in the backpack, hung up in the jacket. I 100% promise you that you will be a better networker and people will have a better impression and better conversation with you without this device. And there's actually studies that show that people's impression of you changes when you have your phone on you during conversation. And now, jumping into virtual conversations can be a little awkward. So here are just a few quick phrases or strategies for how you can jump into virtual conversations. And this is not just for events, but also as an intern, you might be in virtual meetings, right? And so you don't want to necessarily be jumping in constantly in virtual meetings, but you want to show up, you want to raise your hand, right? And it can be a little awkward. So here are just a few tips on how to jump into virtual conversations. And here are just a few other openers. A great way to jump in is to respond to what other people have said, right? And here are just some general conversation tips, right? So when you're talking to folks, starting out short and sweet, right? No one likes to be kind of stuck sitting, waiting on people telling their life story when they just, want to network and learn a little bit about you. It's also a good idea to ask open-ended questions of people versus where did you go to school? And by open-ended, I mean, instead of saying, where did you go to school? You can say, oh, what was your favorite part about undergrad, right? That gives more room for people to tell a story. And when you're telling stories, try not to, get too detailed, keep things high level. And again, really just listen, right? Listen and respond. Try not to be too focused on what's the next question going to be? What's the next question going to be? And focus on just answering and listening and responding and taking cues from people. And then, of course, when you're networking, you always want to get contact information at the end. And now, who thinks closing conversations is more awkward than opening them? A quick poll. Do you think opening conversations is more awkward or closing them is more awkward? Starting or ending? Opening or closing? What do we think? I'm just curious. Okay, starting, ending, opening, closing. What do we think? Looks a little bit tied, but Addison says closing most definitely. Okay, so I think a lot of people think closing is a little bit tougher. Does anyone want to guess what my popcorn method is to closing conversations? Anyone want to guess? Any popcorn lovers out there want to guess what I mean by the popcorn method when it comes to figuring out how and when to close conversations? Any ideas? Any guesses? Leaving them wanting more. That actually is really good. That's not the thought that I have behind it, but that's good. Oh, Matthew, you got it. When the conversation slows. Okay, why do I call this the popcorn method? So when you're making popcorn, I make it on the stove a lot. You know that it's done when the popping slows down, right? At first, when you make popcorn, the pops, they come right after each other. There's a lot of them, but eventually when it slows down, that's when you want to stop. That's when you want to remove it from the heat. So when you're having a conversation, a networking conversation, most of the time you'll start off, you'll go back and forth, but eventually there will be a natural lull in the conversation, right? A natural pause, either from you or the person. And that is a good cue to close it down. So here are some closers that you can use to end a conversation. And yes, it can be awkward to close a conversation, but just know it's awkward for everybody. And at the same time, nobody goes to a networking event thinking they're going to speak to the same person for an hour, right? So it's just a part of life, right? So here are a few closers that you can use when you're at networking events. And just a few other tips when it comes to networking. It is a great idea to take notes about your conversation, and maybe not during the conversation because, again, it's not a good idea to have out your phone. But if you have, especially say, a really great conversation with someone that you want to follow up with and definitely stay connected with, jot some notes down on the back of their business card, or when you get home, or when you're on that commute home, or that night. Another, again, important thing is to stay focused, retain eye contact, focus on the conversation at hand instead of being distracted or being on your phone. And include what you hear in your responses, right? If you respond by referencing things they said, they're going to know you were really paying attention. And if anyone here feels like they already have networking down, you're comfortable networking, one of my biggest tips at networking events, if you want to take it to the next level, is to close your conversation by making an introduction to who you're talking to with somebody else, to bring that one person to somebody else to make an introduction and then leave. That's really powerful because that helps start, not just end your conversation, but to start a new one. All right, and so just in general, what are some other ways, what are some things you can do in networking strategies to make networking authentic, to find the right people to network and with, and to make it fun and enjoyable. So a lot of you might be thinking, okay, well, who do I network with? Who do I reach out to for informational interviews, right? We'll talk about the outreach in a second, but here's a short list of how to target people in terms of who you reach out to for informational interviews or people at your current internship. So thinking about recruiters, people who are recruiters, it's their job to network, people who you genuinely admire, people whose careers who inspire you, whose work inspires you because you've read about them through social media or industry blogs or through studies or the news. People who speak at events are also likely to be more open to networking, as well as people who are in leadership roles and teachers, people who are adjunct professors. And of course, when you're trying to reach out to people online, people who are active online, right? You can tell if somebody has been up that you'll get responses. And how to find people, on these social media platforms, you could search hashtags, right? So every industry has related hashtags. So I'm curious if anybody can share an example of a hashtag that might be related to your industry. So for instance, Yasmin wants to be in HR at Google. So maybe a hashtag that she follows is hashtag HR tech or hashtag human resources, right? Maybe some people in the audience can share some industry work-related hashtags that you can think of that you could use to find and connect with professionals or peers. Also, if you know there's an event going on in a specific location, like a stadium or a convention setting, you can search posts that were in that venue. And then looking at industry social media handles, right? Because every industry has publications that are on social media, and you can see who are they tagging and following the accounts that they follow. And so once you find people that you want to network with online, or maybe you met somebody at an event that you want to follow up with to try to get that informational interview, you want to keep your outreach short and sweet. And really it boils down to these three things. You want to give your short elevator pitch. Definitely include that you're an intern/student because people are more likely to help younger folks, students. And the important thing is that you want to include, why did you pick that person? What is it about that person's career or work is a reason you reached out to them? What does this mean? This means that you should never be able to copy and paste the same networking outreach to multiple people, right? Because that means that you didn't put the work in to say why you want to network with that specific person. So maybe something is interesting about their work, or they won an award, or they have a background that's similar to yours, or maybe you went to the same school, or you both interned at the same place, right? Just putting in that that reason why. And then you want to include your ask, because at this point, with people working in hybrid situations, networking more, events are happening, you do want to be specific. Are you hoping to do a short phone call? Are you hoping to hop on to do a Zoom chat with them? Or is this somebody who is in your city and you're you would love to take them out to coffee or grab a coffee with them if that's possible. But whatever you're aiming for, it's good to include that as well. And now, I hope that after this event, you're inspired to reach out to at least one person to get an informational interview, but you have to recognize that most people are busy and inundated with so many messages, and a huge part of networking is the follow-up. I like to say that sending one message is like not sending any messages at all. So, this is just a general follow-up strategy, sending that first message, say on LinkedIn, and then maybe about a week later, you're able to find their email address, or vice versa. And then sending, maybe a third note. It's totally fine to send a third message, maybe 2 weeks later after the first one. And you mix up the message a little bit and just say, checking in, wanted to see if you're available. Keep it short and sweet. A lot of people appreciate the follow-up, and when you follow up in a respectful manner, spread out over time, that might to them signal, hey, this person is serious. So I get a handful of people reaching out to me. I'm going to pick the person who put in the time to follow up. Now, what you don't want to do is you do not want to take it personally when people don't respond to you. There are so many reasons that people don't respond, and really none of the reason is because you're not good enough, you're not cool enough, you're not worth it. So you cannot take it personally. And it's a numbers game, right? In your career, especially when you're young, you want to reach out to a lot of people all the time. And someone could come back to you 6 months later and say, oh my gosh, I'm just coming up for air because I was so busy at work, or I had a personal thing going on, but you always want to just keep on continuing to connect with people over time. And one huge way to follow up and stay on people's radar, after connecting with people, so at your internship, for instance, you should be connecting with your colleagues, your peers, your bosses, people in other departments, your professors, your fellow students, people at this event, right? You should be connecting with people on your LinkedIn all the time, and same with, your other social channels that you might use professionally as well. And by posting on those other channels, that's a way for you to stay on people's radar over time in a scalable way, right? You can't directly message everyone all the time about your accomplishments or things that you're up to. So that's why you want to share them on social media. So these are just a few real examples of social media posts on different channels. And that can include creating your own posts, or as you know, it's very easy to just retweet or reshare posts that you find interesting, but using places like LinkedIn to, sort of post big accomplishment posts, like when you get a new internship or job, or when you graduate, at the end of a year, at the end of an internship, and then also take advantage of things that are already happening on social media. So for instance, on Twitter, I believe it's the third Tuesday of every month, there's Portfolio Day. Who knows who started it, but on the third Tuesday of every month, on Twitter, people use the hashtag Portfolio Day to share screenshots and images and videos from their art portfolios. So this is something you can take advantage of if that's a world you want to network into. And then it's always a great idea, say at events like these, to post after the event, to post a little wrap up post, say on LinkedIn, you can tag people who are the speakers. You can tag people like Aaron and Cassandra, who are wonderful hosts and organizers, after connecting with them, and say thank you. Like, I was so happy to attend this event, right? That's an incredible thing to do. And you can similarly on Instagram, for instance, on stories, post that you're at a networking event during it. So these sort of live or post-event posts are a great thing to post as well. If you want to take things to the next level, especially if you're in a creative industry or a more competitive industry, you might want to consider creating a personal website. There's a lot of tools out there that are free and easy to use for students, where you can really just have a home base to explain. Again, your pitch, another place for your pitch, a bio, your resume, and your contact information. It's definitely a really great way to stand out. And don't forget about thank you cards. Just curious in the chat, when is the last time you have sent a physical thank you card to anyone? Just curious, can anyone remember the last time you sent a physical thank you card? Okay, Yasmin, thanks. Being vulnerable, 2015. That's about 7 years ago. Graduation. Oh, Kimberly says last week. Okay, amazing. 2021. Great. Last week, Tammy, also, I am a huge fan of thank you cards. They don't have to be fancy, although I love a fancy thank you card that's cool and thoughtful and interesting. But consider sending thank you cards, not to random people you meet at networking events, but to mentors, to your boss, to your fellow interns, and especially, to your bosses, to your professors. You have their addresses, right? You know where they work. So you don't have to ask for their personal mailing address. if you know where that person works, right? So think about it, because these are physical mementos where, again, especially if it's cool, it's something that they might keep. And you can also consider getting business cards as a student as well that you can hand out at networking events. It's very inexpensive. You can get them at Staples. You can put what your major is, your year of graduation, and your email and LinkedIn, keep it really simple. But these physical mementos, as we get back into networking in person, can really, really help you to stand out. All right, and here are just some strategies to maintaining relationships, because networking and going to events and having informational interviews, these efforts don't mean anything if you don't continue to put in the effort over time. You never know when a connection can come back into your life. It can be a year, 5 years, 10 years, right? So these are just a few strategies of how you can maintain relationships with all the incredible people that you are going to meet throughout your career. And really what I want to emphasize is it's up to you who you bring and keep in your network. There's no blame game here in terms of saying, well, I don't have these types of people in my network. I don't know these types of people. We are so lucky to live in this day and age where it is incredibly easy to contact and connect with anyone. We just have to be brave. We just have to do it and be persistent. All right, so here are just a few very actionable ways that you can maintain relationships. And as we wrap up, I want to encourage you to put any questions in the Q&A box because we will have some time for questions. So as one of my final slides, as an adjunct professor, I feel like I'm allowed to give homework. I know it's the summer, but I've thrown a lot of information out there, and I'm a big believer of the importance of inspiration, but action is what's really important. And when it comes to taking action, it's important to give yourself measurable goals that you can really hold yourself accountable to. So these are just a few examples. You can riff off of them or come up with completely other ones based on where you are in your networking journey and where you want to go. But I would love if everybody could take a minute to write down, at least 2 to 3 action items for yourself. You can write it down personally. But I would also love if everyone could just share one actionable goal, one actionable step that you're going to take, some goal that you can accomplish this summer, right? So make it specific and actionable, include numbers, include something where you can really measure the results, and something that you have control over, right? You don't have control over who gets back to you, but you have control over how many people you reach out to and how many times you follow up. Right? So it's really important to, again, put numbers on these goals. I would love to see some of the goals that you are coming up with yourselves in the chat. And I already see a few. Great. Keep continuing to put your goals in there. Sending thank you notes, right? And add some actionable measurements to those, right? So send a thank you note once a week. How nice would that be to sit down and once a week think about someone you're grateful to in your career, whether that's a family member or a friend, a peer or teacher, a mentor, right? Sending a thank you note once a week is great. I think I should actually do that as well. I have too many thank you notes anyway. So please continue as I take some questions from the Q&A box to put in a goal, at least one goal, into the chat so we can also all inspire each other. And yes, so looking at the questions in the chat here, I am going to give these slides to our hosts so they can send them out. And my email, and well, the best way to connect with me is LinkedIn. So I do have my LinkedIn on the last slide here. So I really encourage you all to connect with me on LinkedIn. And another really great LinkedIn tip is that you can send a custom note when you connect with people on LinkedIn. And it's another way to stand out and remind people how or why you're connecting with them. So for me, it's easy, right? You can say, thanks for your talk at the Texas Interns Unite event, right? Yasmin, I better definitely see a connect invite from you since I want to make that intro to you. So, sending that custom note will really help you stand out when you're making connections. And you can also use that custom note to as a way to just reach out to people who you've never met before, to again give that pitch of saying who you are, why you want to connect with them, and how you'd like to connect with them. All right, so if there are any other questions, oh, and I do encourage you all to put your own LinkedIns in the chat here so we can connect with each other as well. So one person asked, do I hire at this point in my career? So yes, so I currently, one of the companies that I'm really focused on is an e-commerce company. We actually sell pet products. I just hired a marketing e-commerce coordinator recently. So I am hiring. It's great to connect with me, share your interests. You never know what I might be hiring for next. So I see I have a fellow cat lover in the audience. I love cats so much. See, great example, Dayon. Thanks for sharing that. Sharing these personal things like that you love cats also, it's a great way to connect with folks on a personal level, which makes networking even more fun and enjoyable, because I could talk to you about cats for a good amount of time. And if we were in person, I would definitely ask you to show me a picture of your cat. All right, so I just want to close by emphasizing that it is so important, like Joyce said, for you to celebrate yourselves, because you are here. Everyone who is here is an overachiever. I say that as a good thing, right? You're taking the steps needed to stand out in your career, to do more, to do better, to push yourself. And so you should really acknowledge that. You should celebrate that. And just because of that, I know you're all going to kill it. You're going to take these steps, you're going to put them into action in a way that makes sense for you. And you're going to have amazing careers and build a great network for yourself. So again, I'm really, really thankful to Aaron and Cassandra for having me at this incredible event. What a wonderful experience they're creating for all of you. I'm so excited to see how all of the other events play out. And I am truly, truly happy and excited to connect with you all and people who I meet at events. I've been giving keynotes at colleges and events for almost 15 years. And there are people who I still stay in touch with, who I still recognize their names or their pictures, because they've maintained connections with me over, incredible long periods of time. So I do truly love connecting with people again at these events. I've been looking at your names and your comments throughout the chat. So this is the best way to connect with me, is to add me on LinkedIn. And if you'd like my email from there, I'm pretty sure it's easy to get as well, but you can send me a note and I can send my email also. So please do stay connected. And also there is a Texas Unite LinkedIn group as well. So if you join that Texas Unite LinkedIn group, then you can all find each other that way as well. And I'll make sure to join that group as well, so you can easily find my profile that way also. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to the Texas Intern Unite crew.
Hello, thank you. Quick note, some of you are looking for internship opportunities. Feel free, we'll make sure that you're connected to those internship opportunities on our website. So again, thank you. Thank you, Emily, so much for that excellent presentation. I'm gonna give you a virtual applause that I learned from our speaker, Joyce Johnson. And we look forward to you being a part of our Texas Interns Unite family. So I want to thank Chairman Daniel. I want our partner, Dr. Tina Jackson with the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, Joyce Johnson, and of course, again, our keynote speaker, Emily Methner, and our champion, Commissioner Demerson. Texas Interns Unite is an amazing and powerful resource for building your presence and creating career relationships online and in real life. So stay connected by joining the Texas Interns Unite LinkedIn page and visit our website at www.twc.texas.gov for information on the Texas Interns Unite Challenge. Thank you for joining us this morning, and we look forward to your attendance in our in-person National Internship Day with a Texas Twist conference scheduled to take place on July 28th, 2022, this year. Until then, Texas Interns Unite.
Thank you, Emily. Good job. Great job.
Bye, Emily. Thank you.